Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Marcus Aurelius, and this is Dwarf Fortress version 0.42. And before we get started, I have a quick linguistic issue to discuss with you. As you know, languages evolve over time. For example, the Byzantine Greeks of the Middle Ages spoke a version of Greek that was very different from ancient Greek, and only the most educated of people in those times could write in the same style as the ancient Greeks. Another example is the differences between British and American English. They say Barclay, we say Berkeley. They say Suffolk, we say Suffolk. So languages evolve and develop over time, and Dwarven language is no exception to this rule. The reason I'm bringing this up, in case you're wondering, is that in the time before recorded history, the world that all of this takes place in was referred to as Enthador, Dar, D-A-R. But the dwarves of today, the modern dwarves, through the linguistic changes that simply happen over time and also through migrations and the splitting up of the great dwarven civilizations, now refer to it as Enthador, Dor. So you may notice in some cases, in some scholarly tomes from ancient times, the old spellings. Primarily, the place that you're going to be seeing it is in Legends mode, where you see it as Enthadar, as you can see here. That is because that is focusing on the ancient Dwarven word. But I am going to focus on the modern interpretation of Enthador, because it is more in line with what the citizens of our civilization call it. And what civilization is that, you might be wondering? Well, we are the Oaken Flags. You see, in the times long before ancient history, when the world was young, in the age of creation, when the Dwarven people first stepped foot on Enthador, they formed their first civilizations far to the northeast in the persuasive Horns. That, to this day, is still the center of Dwarven civilization on Enthador. There are 3 very lively and strong civilizations, and every inch of that mountain range has been excavated by the Dwarven peoples. But over time, as is their wont, dissidents and people who are just itching for something new set off on exploratory journeys to see the land and to find a new home for them and their families. They went to the Untamed Beak. They went south to the Vermilion Walls. They went far west to the Murky Barb. But finally, after many, many, many years, they finally reached the far south of Enthador, the most untamed portion of the land, and they formed a civilization in the Fair Axe, which is an incredibly large mountain range, but for all of that, very under-civilized. There are very few dwarven bastions in it. The dwarves of the Oaken Flags have lived a very difficult existence. Not only must they contend with the fact that their lands are just in general more wild and less civilized, but there is also a goblin civilization that has been giving them trouble since day one. We, of course, know them as the mangy spider. So, the dwarves of the Oaken Flags have had to be a bit more open-minded to the world, having to fight off beasts and goblins, and even having 2 of their kings kidnapped by night trolls and turned into foul abominations. As a result, they are less racist and a bit more open-minded than other dwarves, and they have formed very lucrative trade alliances with the nearby humans and elves. But why would a dwarven civilization use a tree, a living object made of wood, as their sigil when they could have a more dwarven sigil, such as stone or metal? Part of this stems from the fact that, of course, they are a bit more open-minded than the other Dwarven peoples. But another reason is because they saw one day as an oak tree was perched upon a mountainside. They looked closely and they saw that the roots of the oak tree were going deep into the stone, and by their growth were shattering it, causing large cracks and fissures in the stone. The power of that tree, the power of the oak, was enough to shatter stone. And they learned that lesson. And so we are the oaken flags. And this is our civilization. And just to give you a quick rundown of our history, let's go to the world stats. The oaken flags have about 5,200 citizens and 46 sites. As I mentioned, 2 of their kings were kidnapped and turned into lumbering trolls, but they were soon replaced, and the current king, the dwarf Onil Mountain Whip, has been in power for near 40 years. Actually, a little bit over 40 years, 42 years. And as I've mentioned, they have suffered through many difficult times. They've had their hillocks destroyed by the bronze colossus Koala Roared Swords. They've had another hillocks destroyed by the forest titan Ostub natural clam, the Sunken Butterfly. Actually, that forest titan destroyed 4 different hillockses. 5 walled griffins down here as well. Then the Mountain Hall of Gear Clasps was destroyed in 91 by the forgotten beast Totus Lava Raunches, the Callus of Stench. So they've had a rough time of it. They've lost many villages to these beasts, and also they are currently at war, and have been for some time, with the goblin civilization of the Mangy Spider. It's called the Scorching War. It's been going on since the year 84, so 70 or so years. And unfortunately, the war has not gone well for them. Out of the 3 battles that have been fought, they have lost all 3. So what are they going to do? What is the plan? How are the oaken flags going to right what has been wronged, to turn the tide of this war? Well, it's interesting, interesting to bring that up, because not too long ago from the present time, a strange dwarf appeared in the halls of the oaken flags, and this dwarf's name was Marcus Aurelius. A little on the crazy side, some said. He had some interesting ideas, some kooky architecture, and some theories, and he claimed, strangely enough, to not be from another dwarven civilization, but rather a completely different world. Luckily for him, the rulers of the oaken flags were very, as I said, open-minded, and they listened to him, and the more and more they heard him speak, the more they thought, this guy has some good ideas. He is going to help us fight this war against the goblins and hopefully win. So they commissioned a plan, and this plan was for this dwarf, Marcus Aurelius, to design numerous fortresses throughout the world, each with a different purpose, in order to spread the reach of the oaken flags, and, in some cases, to fight and defeat their goblin enemies. That was their number 1 priority. And so the first fortress that was commissioned was designed purely for that purpose. This fortress was going to do something that had not been done before in the history of the oaken flags. As you can see from the map, they are currently surrounded by the goblins. The goblins are infringing upon them. The only area that's relatively safe is the area to the south. So Marcus Aurelius came up with a very bold plan, and that plan was for a team of 7 foolhardy, suicidal dwarves to cross through the enemy lines and to create a bastion just barely miles away from the capital of the goblin civilization, to serve as a rear guard so that armies sent against them would not be sent against the more civilian-populated areas of the oaken flags. and hopefully to cause incredible damage and loss of life to the goblins. And so they were sent off in the middle of the night, 7 dwarves, heading towards the new fortress of Kuganobak, also known as Sandpillar, in the giant black sand desert, only a stone's throw away from the dark pits of Bad Tempest and the dark fortress of Hellhide, the capital of the mangy spider, where they are ruled not by a being of this world, but rather a 3-eyed devil, Utheg Gutsflyer. And Utheg, in a time before time, was in the Citadel of Subtleties, which is an obsidian spire that he raised from the deepest, darkest abyss into the world of Enthador. He thrust a spire of Slade up from the underworld, naming it the Citadel of Subtleties, and established a gateway between worlds, and this gateway is known as Hellhide. And it is almost invisible range of Hellhide that this fortress of Sandpillar is to be established. So let us now tell the tale of Sandpillar, the fortress that stands at the very gates of the enemy to try to take some pressure off from the civilization of the Oaken Flags. I'm feeling very dwarfy today, folks. This morning, I hiked 10 miles up a mountain, and right now, I am doing something incredibly dwarfy. I'm drinking booze. But it's not what I'm drinking that's important. It's what I'm drinking it out of. You see, I'm drinking out of a 100% solid copper mug. Pure copper, like it turns green if you don't rinse it and dry it as soon as you're done drinking out of it. So I don't think you can get really any more dwarfy than that. And before we get started, I'm going to take a leisurely sip. Ah, that's good. Now it sounds like I've got sound sense on, and I could have sworn I turned that off. Let's take a look here. Yeah, I thought I turned music off, but I guess I didn't. So music off. Great. Apologize for that. Okay, so let's take a look at Sandpillar. So Sandpillar is going to be a little bit crazy. It is exactly what it says it is. It is a pillar of sand located in the northwest of the Courageous Dunes, a black sand desert. And because I've always loved miners more than builders, I mean, don't get me wrong, I build quite a bit, but I love large earthen constructions with miners. How this is going to work is we're going to channel out this, basically this square, and we're going to continue the channel down as far as we could possibly go before hitting the caverns. And that is going to be our defense. You see, we are 7 dwarves versus the entire might of the goblin armies. It's not going to take long for them to find us. It's not going to take long for them to set out against us and try to defeat us. So we're going to need to maximize our potential. We're going to need what's called a force multiplier. It's not enough to have an army, because any army would be outnumbered. So we need to use dwarven ingenuity and brains to win this one. So we're going to have a deep pit surrounding Sandspire. And Sandspire's not the name, though, is it? It's Sandpillar, sorry. And we are going to have 2 entrances. We're going to have a main entrance that's guarded by a bridge. And that is how traders and visitors and migrants are going to enter the fortress. But when enemies arrive, we are going to close that main entrance, and we are going to have a second entrance, a little thin trail that can only be traversed by one creature at a time, which is going to be over this pit and is going to be loaded with traps, weapons traps. And our hope is that when our enemies either are struck by these weapon traps or jump to avoid them, they will fall down into the pit and not only cause themselves incredible harm from the fall, but also we're going to put a bunch of glass spikes at the bottom. And the traps themselves are going to be made out of glass. And that's another reason why we're settling here in Sandspire, because the prevalence of sand means that we can have a ton of glass. Now there are going to be some challenges here because there's very little wood. There are some cactuses. I believe these are cactuses. I'm not entirely sure. Let's see. What are these guys? Oops. That's not what I want. I think, K. Yup. They are, yep, saguaro cactuses. Actual gigantic saguaro cactuses. If you've ever seen any in real life, they're not that big. But that's it. We don't have much wood, so we're going to be basically relying a lot on trade. And perhaps we're going to need to dig down into the caverns as fast as we possibly can. Now, I've been experimenting with some of the new systems, and I've been having a little bit of fun with it. If you'll notice here, we have a priority. So if you'll look here, this basically room is our first priority. This room is our second. This room is our third, fourth, and fifth. These ones I'm not excavating out just yet. And so hopefully the dwarves will, instead of excavating a little bit of each room at a time, they'll excavate the middle one first, and we can have our material moved in as quickly as possible. I want to get this place defensible as soon as we possibly can. So the plan is to dig out this trench, which will not provide any security at first, but we'll basically create a drawbridge that will close over our entrance. This will serve two good purposes. One, it will protect us in the event that we are attacked or ambushed. I believe a building destroyer could probably destroy it, but by that time, hopefully, we'll have a bit better defense. But another cool thing about it is that it will allow sunlight to go down our entire central column, which means that hopefully our dwarves will be a bit more accustomed to light, and they won't vomit and have terrible feelings if they ever come out in the sunlight for one reason or another. And then once this first level of the trench is dug, we will continue to dig down. It's going to take a little bit of work, though, because it's not something you can plan ahead. You have to do one level at a time, and also I have to be sure to make the two entrances without causing any trouble. So that is the plan. And before we get started in earnest, let's take a look at the fortress in ISOWorld. Now, I mentioned in Anvil Quested that a good way to find your fortress in ISOWorld is to use the combined biome and elevation map, because unlike the pictograph and other maps, it will actually show you your fortress. In my case, it's these two silver squares surrounded by more dark gray squares. And as you can see over here, here's the goblin pits. There's other ways you can look at it too. The structures tab will not show it, strangely enough. It will show the goblins. But the trade tab will. It's actually a bit more clear. It's blue. And it's funny because if you look over here, you can see here's the capital of the goblin civilization right here. It's surrounded by 4 other cities, these 2 cities, and a city up here. These lines indicate trade. So obviously this is the big bad mamma jamma of the goblins, and we need to be prepared because we are right next to them. But of course we want to see the pictographic because it gives us the best idea, even though our fortress doesn't actually show up on it. Happily, though, the goblin civilization does, and you can see just how large and terrible their capital is here with all these walls and the little areas around it. So here we are in the Black Sand Desert, right here, basically. So we're pretty close to them, I must say. Now, the name of this desert, by the way, is the Courageous Dunes, and the name of this stream is the Artificial Watches. And that is Sandpillar. Let's get back to it. Now, in order to lead this expedition, we needed a dwarf so crazy, so unconcerned about safety that they were willing to take this chance. Who did we get? Well, let's see. Let's take a look at our dwarves here. Been a while since I've done this. Okay. The leader of this expedition is Birdie-Bot, the leader. Then we also have Lisaduin, the genealogist. Now, Lisaduin is the avatar of a man named Liquidor, who created an entire genealogy of my previous fortress, Anvil Quested. So I thought the honor should go to him as genealogist to be our bookkeeper, essentially, because that's what he's good at doing. So Lisaduin is our bookkeeper, Birdie-Bot is our leader and manager, and our broker is Dwarf Comic. Dwarf Comic is our broker. Or wait, no. I'm sorry, no. Okay. BirdieBot is the leader and manager. Lisa Doohan is the bookkeeper and broker. And Arcade Knight is our weaponsmith and armorsmith. Those three are our miners as well. See, I'm not going to show you the part where I put everything together, but essentially mining is a skill that is very easy to learn, especially mining through soil and sand. So I didn't give any of my people skill in mining. I'm giving them a pick and having them go at it. And instead, I gave them skills in leadership, in management, in basically the skills that are required for brokering trade and bookkeeping. And obviously, because we are going to need some defense, you can't make armor out of glass, unfortunately. Arcade Knight needs to have skills that will help in that arena. In addition to that, we have Zarya, who is our cook and brewer. We have Whitman, who is our agrarian. And by that I mean he is a farmer and a plant gatherer, and he takes care of animals. And then we have Dwarf Comic, who is a comic. But his actual job... Actually, you know what? It's so much easier to do this in Dwarf Therapist. So, yes, BirdieBot is our miner, yes, and that's really about it, because all she has is leadership skills. And then Arcade Knight, again, armor and weaponsmithing and mining. Lisa Doohan is... It's funny, because they come with these skills that you didn't give them. Apparently a competent dancer. I don't know if you can see that. It's outside of the window. I can't resize it, unfortunately. I'll figure out a way around that. Maybe if I click? No. Anyway, so Dwarf Comic is our mason and stone detailer, because I figured he'd make, as a comic, as someone who develops comics, he'd make a great engraver. So that's his role. Whitman, as I mentioned, is animal care and farming, and also plant processing. Actually, I think I'm having Zarya do the plant gathering. I think it's because Zarya has less to do in the early stages before we do any cooking and brewing. Oh, and Whitman also handles weaving, because one of the things about having a fortress in sand is you need to collect that sand, and that sand needs to be put in bags. So I brought a more large than usual assortment of pigtail seeds so that we can grow pigtails and perhaps make pigtail cloth out of them and make bags so we can put the sand in it. That's a big goal of ours. For food, we just bought a bunch of random food, as well as, I believe, 3 chickens. We're going to have chickens for their eggs and maybe meat later on. But we didn't bring any kind of animal that requires any grazing. There are 2, of course, that come with our fortress, and I'm not actually sure which they are. We'll check right now. But the last member of our team of 7 is Chief Jaronka. And Chief Jaronka is our carpenter and starting woodcutter. Once we get some more migrants, he'll go full-time carpentry and woodcrafting. We may even have to make armor at first out of wood in order to protect ourselves, because the world is a dangerous place. The night is dark and full of terrors. So that's our team. That's our initial starting 7. And let's see what actual kind of animals we brought. That looks like a horse. Horse is a horse, of course, of course. No, that's not going to work. No. It's been so long since I've done this. Yeah, it's K. So why aren't you telling me what the hell this is? It's not open. Oh, you know what? This is text will be text. We're using text will be text. So actually, I am 1 Z level above everything that's going on here, but you can see it because we now have the 3D effect that comes with text will be text. So let's go down. It is a stray horse, indeed. And we also have... Oh, so we have 2 stray horses. And this is a boy horse. And another boy horse. So we're not going to have little baby horses, which is just fine. We don't have the time for them. We're going to slaughter them and eat them. But before we end the episode and actually commence with the digging, let me tell you what my plan is. So the whole fortress, at least the first, 10 levels of it or so, is going to look like this. It's going to be 9 equally spaced squares. And the top here is going to be farming, because it's going to be in the sand layer. It's going to be farming, and we're going to put pets in here to graze. We're going to raise our chickens here, and it's going to be the center of our farming and cloth production, and also sand gathering. Now, dwarves can gather an infinite amount of sand from even 1 square of sand, but I thought that was just a little bit unrealistic. So I made it just a smidge more realistic by having a little section here that we're not going to dig out. And this is going to be our big sand gathering area, this big column of sand. Obviously, if this were real, that sand would be gone in 10 minutes, but so it goes. However, what you're not seeing here is that eventually this is going to be like a 1 square wide wall around the whole thing. As you can see up here, we're going to be digging this trench. So it's going to go down. First thing I want to do is I want to go down and see how far it takes till we get to stone. Because I want the first actual floor where visitors and enemies and everybody comes to be stone. So the way I'm going to work it out is I'm going to start the walkway to the front on the top level, because I want people who fall off of it naturally to fall as far as possible. But when we get a few squares away from the actual fortress, we're going to have ramps that go down to whatever level the first level of stone is. Because I don't want to build my tavern in sand. I mean, that's not very hospitable. I want it in my defenses. I'd like them to be stone. So that's how we're going to do it. And that's pretty much it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope you're psyched about Sandpillar. I hope you enjoy the fact that we chose the oaken flags instead of my other potential choice, the Armors of Charm. And I look forward to leading the oaken flags to greatness with you at my side. So once again, I am Marcus Aurelius. I'd like to thank you very much for watching. Have a good one.